Hey everyone, and welcome back. AI is evolving so quickly it can be tough to keep up.
It really is.
ChatGPT just got even more powerful with its new Canvas feature.
Right.
Canvas lets ChatGPT do a whole lot more than just chat. We're talking things like writing code and even pulling data from the web.
It's pretty wild.
So if you're a Python developer and haven't really dug into ChatGPT yet, well, this deep dive is for you.
Yeah, we're going to break down all these new features so you can start using them.
Even if you've never used ChatGPT before.
Exactly.
We'll be comparing two ways ChatGPT can run your Python code.
Okay.
The first is Code Interpreter, which has been around for a little while now.
Right.
And then the brand new Canvas.
Yeah.
So let's start with Code Interpreter.
All right. Code Interpreter, it's like the safe and isolated coding environment.
Okay.
You can upload files to it and have ChatGPT run your code on them using a whole bunch of pre-installed Python libraries.
So it's kind of like having a superpowered calculator that can handle complex calculations and work with your data.
You got it, yeah. But there are some limitations.
Okay.
Code Interpreter is designed with security in mind.
Right.
So it can't access the internet or make any API requests.
I see. So it's great for tasks where you have the data you need already, right?
Yes.
But what if you need to pull information from the web?
Well, that's where Canvas comes in.
Okay.
Canvas lets you run Python code directly in your browser. It uses something called Pyodide to do that.
Right.
And what makes it really powerful is that it can actually fetch data from external APIs.
Now, hold on a second. When you say API, for anyone who's new to that term, can you break that down a little bit?
Sure. Imagine you're ordering food online.
Okay.
You browse the menu, choose what you want, and then you place your order.
Yeah.
Right. The restaurant system processes your order and sends back a confirmation.
Right.
APIs work in a similar way.
Okay.
You send a request to a specific service on the web. For example, you could request weather data, and the API will deliver that data back to you in a way that your code can understand.
So Canvas allows ChatGPT to send out these orders for information, basically,
Yeah.
making it way more dynamic than Code Interpreter.
That's it. This means you can use ChatGPT to build applications that interact with real-time data, which is pretty cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But with that kind of power, doesn't that also mean there are some security risks involved?
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime you're dealing with code that can fetch data from external sources, there's always the potential for misuse, especially if you're running code from places you don't completely trust.
Oh, so it's kind of like browsing online.
Yeah.
You don't want to just click on any random link, right?
Right.
You got to be smart about what you're doing.
That's the key. These are powerful tools, no doubt about it. But it's up to us to use them responsibly and safely.
All right, I got to admit, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed. I mean, is it even possible to keep up with AI?
I hear ya. The AI world is moving so fast, it's hard to keep track.
It really is.
Even experts are constantly learning new things.
Okay.
So don't sweat it if you don't get it all at once.
Okay. So for someone like me, a Python developer who's new to this whole ChatGPT thing, where do I even begin? Should I just stick to the basics for now?
I think the best approach is to start by understanding the core principles,
Okay.
like the main differences between a Code Interpreter and Canvas.
Okay.
Once you have a good handle on those, you can start experimenting
Great advice.
and see what works best for you.
Okay, so we have Code Interpreter, which is our secure coding assistant. It's great for working with the data we already have.
Right.
And then we have Canvas, which can fetch data from those external APIs, making it really dynamic,
Yeah.
both powerful, but each one has its own strengths and limitations.
Exactly.
It's important to stay informed and use them wisely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're on the verge of a major change in how we build software and interact with data.
I think so too.
These tools are going to be essential in navigating that change. It's exciting. And a bit daunting, I must admit.
Oh yeah, definitely. But remember, even the most experienced developers were once beginners.
That's true.
Take it one step at a time. Don't be afraid to ask for help along the way.
I love that. All right, let's break down each of these tools even further.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's start by digging a little deeper into this Code Interpreter.
Okay.
What makes it such a powerful tool, even with its limitations?
Yeah, you mentioned it being like a closed system. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means exactly?
Yeah, so think of Code Interpreter as this really secure, self-contained environment for writing and running code.
Okay.
It comes with this awesome collection of built-in Python libraries, which are like these ready-made tools for common tasks.
Right.
But the catch is it can't actually reach beyond that to the wider internet.
So it's kind of like I don't know, like a high-tech workshop. You
Yeah.
got all the tools you need, but no internet connection. Perfect analogy. And this is
Okay.
actually really beneficial for certain tasks. Like, let's say you're working with some sensitive data that you absolutely do not want to expose to the internet.
Uh-huh.
Code Interpreter is perfect for that.
Okay.
It provides that secure environment where you can analyze, manipulate, visualize your data without worrying about any external access.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's this trade-off then.
Yeah.
You get the security and control, but you give up that ability to pull in real-time data from the web.
Right. But don't forget, it's still super versatile. There's a lot you can do with those pre-installed libraries, especially if you're already comfortable with Python. You can do complex calculations, create visualizations, you can analyze data from files you upload, even generate reports, all within this nice and safe, isolated environment.
All right. Starting to see the appeal here. Now let's switch gears and talk about Canvas.
Okay.
What makes its ability to access these APIs so game-changing?
Well, imagine you're building a web application that needs to show live stock prices. In the old days, you would have had to write all this code to manually fetch that data from a financial API and then parse it and then integrate it into your application. It's a pain.
Yeah.
But with Canvas, ChatGPT can do all that heavy lifting for you.
Wow, that sounds like a huge time saver.
Oh, it is. It is. And it opens up a whole world of possibilities. You can ask ChatGPT to create applications that interact with real-time data from weather APIs, social media platforms, financial services, all sorts of stuff. And you don't have to become an API expert yourself.
So it's like having this dedicated API assistant built right into ChatGPT.
You got it. But like we talked about earlier, this power comes with responsibility.
Right.
When you're using Canvas, you got to be extra careful about the code you're running, especially if it's coming from external sources.
Yeah, can you just remind us why that is again?
Sure. Because Canvas runs code in your browser, there's always a risk that some malicious code could try to steal your data.
Right.
You know, it's like downloading a file from the internet. You always want to be sure it's from a trusted source.
Okay, so double check the source of any code we're running in Canvas.
Yes.
What are some other tips for staying safe?
Well, first, always read through the code before you run it. Try to
Okay.
understand what it's doing and where it's sending data. If anything looks fishy, just don't run it.
Right.
Second, be really careful about just pasting code from random places you find online. If you're not sure about it, ask for help. There are tons of online communities and forums where you can get advice from experienced developers.
Great tips. So it's all about being informed and being proactive about security.
Absolutely. And hey, even the best developers can make mistakes, so it's always best to err on the side of caution.
Right. Good advice. So we've talked about the security risks, but let's flip the coin again and focus on the good stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
Can you give us some examples of how Canvas can be used to build cool applications?
Of course. Let's say you're a data scientist working on a project that requires pulling in data from like a bunch of different sources. Traditionally, you'd have to write custom code to connect to each API, fetch that data, format it in a consistent way. It's a whole thing.
Right.
But with Canvas, ChatGPT can handle all of that for you.
Wow.
You just tell it what data you need, and it will figure out how to get it, and it will give it to you in a nice structured format.
So it's like having this personal data assistant that can gather info from all over the web and organize it for you.
Exactly. And all this automation can free up your time so you can focus on more strategic stuff like analysis and decision making.
I see how that could be a total game changer for anyone working with data. It's not just about building apps, it's about changing the way we approach data analysis and research.
You got it. And this is only the beginning. As these technologies keep getting better, we're going to see even more amazing ways to use them. Imagine ChatGPT helping you create custom dashboards that show real-time data from your business, or building interactive visualizations to help you understand complex data sets.
Yeah, that's some really cool stuff. I'm starting to see the potential impact this could have on all kinds of fields, not just software development.
It's true. This is why it's so important for developers to really wrap their heads around these tools, even if you're not planning to build AI applications yourself. They are going to shape the future of almost every industry. Knowing how to use them is a seriously valuable skill.
Yeah, this whole conversation has given me so much to think about.
Me too.
It's clear that Code Interpreter and Canvas are powerful tools, but it's also clear that we need to approach them with a lot of caution.
Uh-huh.
and a deep understanding of what they can and cannot do.
I couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power, and in the world of AI, that's truer than ever.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that there's this workaround for code interpreters' lack of internet access.
Right.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So while Code Interpreter can't connect to the internet directly, you can actually upload files to it,
Okay.
including Python libraries packaged as wheels.
So you can actually expand code interpreters' capabilities by adding external libraries. That's
It
pretty.
is. It's like adding new tools to your workshop,
That's
right?
good.
But of course, there's a catch. You need to be super careful about the libraries you upload.
And why is that?
Well, because you're basically introducing code that wasn't originally part of that secure environment.
Right.
You got to make absolutely sure that the libraries are from a trusted source and that you understand exactly what they do.
So it's like downloading software from the internet. You don't want to install something that could mess up your computer.
Perfect analogy. Always, always prioritize security. Verify the integrity of any code you put into Code Interpreter.
Okay, so uploading libraries is powerful, but requires a little extra caution.
Exactly. This technique is best for those who really know their stuff.
All right, so we've covered the security side of things.
Yeah.
Can you give us some real-world examples of how uploading these libraries can be helpful?
Sure. Let's say you need to work with a specific data format that isn't supported by the default libraries in Code Interpreter.
Okay.
You can find a Python library that can handle that format, download it as a wheel file, and upload it to Code Interpreter. And once it's installed, you can use it just like any other library.
So it's kind of like teaching Code Interpreter a new language,
Yeah.
giving it the ability to understand and work with new types of data.
I like that. And this can be super useful when you're working with specialized data sets or integrating with those niche APIs that require very specific libraries.
Okay, this is another example of how having a deeper understanding of Python can really unlock the full potential of these tools.
It absolutely is. The more you know about Python and its ecosystem of libraries, the more you can do with Code Interpreter and Canvas.
I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground here in terms of like the technical side of these tools.
We have.
But I'm curious about the bigger picture. How are Code Interpreter and Canvas changing the way we think about software development as a whole?
That's a fantastic question. I think one of the biggest shifts we're seeing is a move towards a more collaborative and iterative approach to coding.
Interesting.
Traditionally, software development has been this fairly linear process with very clear stages and roles.
Right.
But with these new tools, those lines are getting blurred.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
So picture a team of developers working on a project.
Okay.
In the old way, each person might work on their own separate piece of code, and then they'd try to integrate everything at the end.
Right.
But with tools like Canvas, they can work together much more closely, sharing code, experimenting with different approaches, getting feedback in real time.
It sounds like it's all about breaking down those walls and making the process more dynamic and interactive.
Exactly. And this shift toward collaboration is even more powerful because ChatGPT itself can be a collaborator.
Really?
You can ask for suggestions, get help with debugging, even have it generate code snippets for you.
So it's like having another member of your team, like a tireless coding assistant who's always there to help.
I love that description. And this kind of human-AI collaboration is already changing how developers approach problems. It's less about knowing everything and more about knowing the right questions to ask and how to use AI effectively.
So it's like a new type of literacy is emerging, the ability to communicate with and direct AI systems.
I think you're right. We're in this world now where developers aren't just writing code, they're orchestrating this collaboration between humans and AI.
It's almost like we're not just programmers anymore, we're conductors of this orchestra of human and AI talent.
That's a great way to put it. And as these tools get even more sophisticated, this ability to lead those complex collaborations will only become more important.
This conversation has really opened my eyes to how these tools aren't just changing the technical stuff, but also the culture and the way software teams work together.
It's a huge cultural shift, and we're just at the beginning.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something we haven't talked about yet. We know Canvas lets ChatGPT get data from the internet,
Yes.
which is a big deal for making decisions. But how can we be sure that the information ChatGPT gives us is accurate, unbiased, that we can actually trust it?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's one we all need to think about as AI becomes a bigger part of our lives.
It is easy to get excited about all the possibilities, but we can't forget that these are still just tools.
True.
They're only as good as the data they're trained on. And the people who create and use them.
You're exactly right. We need to be a little skeptical of any information we get,
Right.
whether it comes from a human expert, a news source, or an AI.
Yeah.
It's about thinking critically, understanding biases, and checking information from different sources.
It sounds like this is where being human becomes even more important. We can't just let AI make all our decisions for us.
We can't. We need to be smart and careful users of these tools.
And we need to make sure that these tools are created and used responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely.
That means being open about how they work, fixing biases, and always watching how they affect society.
Couldn't agree more.
It's complicated, but we can't ignore it.
We can't. The future of AI is really up to us.
Okay, I think it's time for a quick recap of what we've talked about today.
Sounds good.
We started by taking a closer look at Code Interpreter,
Yep.
highlighting its strengths as a secure, self-contained environment perfect for working with sensitive data
Right.
or for exploring those pre-installed libraries.
Uh-huh.
Then we explored Canvas, focusing on its ability to access APIs
Yes?
and pull real-time data from the web.
We did.
We talked about the security risks that come with running code from external sources and really emphasized how important it is to be cautious.
And informed.
We looked at practical examples of how developers are using these tools to build powerful applications and automate data analysis,
Right.
and even change the way we think about software development in general.
Yes.
And we also touched on that workaround for Code Interpreter's closed environment.
Uploading external libraries
Exactly.
to expand its capabilities.
And we ended by talking about how Canvas handles all those different formats of data that APIs return.
Using Python libraries.
Exactly.
Very clever.
Wow, we've covered a lot. And I'm already looking forward to the next part of our deep dive.
Me too.
There's still so much to unpack.
Absolutely. In the next part, we're going to shift our focus to the human side of these technologies.
Okay.
We'll explore how they're affecting developers, collaboration, and what it means for the future of software development.
Sounds fascinating. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of Code Interpreter and Canvas,
We have.
their capabilities, the limitations, even some of those workarounds.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm curious about, the human side of all this.
Yeah.
How are these tools actually changing the way developers work and think?
That's a great question, and it's something that often gets lost, with all the excitement around new tech. I think one of the most important shifts is moving away from that traditional linear approach to building software.
When you say linear, what do you mean?
Well, in the past, software development was very structured.
Yeah, okay.
You had these very distinct phases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Planning, design, coding, testing, deployment. Each phase had its own experts. And things moved in a pretty predictable sequence.
Right.
But tools like Code Interpreter and Canvas are kind of blurring those lines.
So it becomes less about sticking to a rigid plan and more about adapting and experimenting as you go.
Exactly. Developers can be way more agile and iterative with these tools.
Okay.
They can try different things, get feedback instantly, and collaborate more easily. Imagine a team working on a project. Instead of everyone coding in their own little silo and then trying to combine it all at the end, they can use Canvas to share code, experiment with APIs, and get real-time feedback from each other.
So it speeds things up and leads to more creative solutions.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just developers working together. ChatGPT itself can be a collaborator.
Yeah.
You can ask it for ideas, help with debugging, even have it write code snippets for you.
So it really is like having another brain in the room.
Yeah.
Someone who can offer a different perspective or lend a hand when you're stuck.
That's it. And this kind of human-AI teamwork is changing how developers think about solving problems. It's less about knowing all the answers and more about knowing what questions to ask and how to get the most out of AI.
It's like a whole new kind of skill set is emerging, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to talk to and guide these AI systems.
You got it. We're in a world now where developers aren't just writing code, they're like conductors, leading this orchestra of human and AI talent.
That's a great analogy. And as these tools become even more advanced, that ability to manage that complexity is going to be even more important.
I agree.
This has really got me thinking about how these tools aren't just changing the technical stuff, but the whole culture of software teams, how they work together.
Yeah, it's a huge cultural shift. We're just at the beginning of it.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more thing I want to touch on. We've talked about how Canvas lets ChatGPT access data from the internet, which is great for decision making. But how do we know that information is accurate, unbiased,
Yeah.
that we can trust it?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's something we all need to be thinking about as AI gets more and more embedded in our lives.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the cool things we can do, but we can't forget that these are still tools.
True.
They're only as good as the data they're trained on and the people who are creating and using them.
Absolutely. We need to develop a healthy skepticism, I think, towards any information we come across. Doesn't matter if it comes from an expert, the news, or an AI system.
Right.
It's all about critical thinking, understanding potential biases, and checking information from different sources.
So this is where being human is even more important. We can't just hand over all our decisions to AI.
We can't. We need to be informed and savvy users of these tools.
We have to make sure these tools are developed and used ethically, responsibly.
Exactly.
That means being transparent about how they work, addressing any biases, and constantly being aware of their impact on society.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a complex issue, but one that we absolutely have to address.
We do. The future of AI is really in our hands.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Code Interpreter and Canvas. It's been a fascinating journey exploring their power, the security considerations, and the huge impact they're having on how we develop software and interact with information.
It's been great being here and sharing these insights.
I hope this has inspired everyone listening to explore these tools, experiment a bit, and think critically about what it all means.
I hope so too.
And remember, whether you're a seasoned developer or just getting started, there's never been a more exciting time to be a part of the world of AI. The possibilities are truly endless. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.